Hello, my name is Ari Waldman. I'm a person who stutters. Today is Thursday, October 29, 2020, the 11th day of the Jewish month of Elul. My video Tanya recording on YouTube, day 22, where I'm reading from Chabad.org. Daily study, daily Tanya-iggeret hakodesh, end of epistle 26. The speech goal I'm going to work on, the communication goal, is pausing. Thursday, 11th, cheshvan 5781, October 29th, 2020, eggeret hakodesh, end of epistle 26. The above applies nowadays when the Shekhinah is exiled in Klipa Noga. Hence, the main function of Torah study is to seek out and elevate the sparks of holiness from the Klipot. Hence, too, the current concentration on the laws of Isur and Heter, Kasher and Pasul, and the like. Aval b'tzeit hashchina miklipat noga nun aleph mea klipot. But when the Shekhinah will engage from klipat noga, or from the klipot, achar shiyo shlem birur han nitzutzot v'yof farer hara mehatov v'itpardu kopole oven. After the extraction of the sparks will be completed, and the evil of the klipot will be separated from the good of holiness, and all the workers of evil will be dispersed. V'lo shlita ilana detov v'ra b'tzeit hatov mimena. And the tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is of klipat noga, which prevails during the time of exile, will no longer be dominant, because the good will have departed from it. Klipat noga is influential only by virtue of its minimal component of good. As soon as this is extracted, klipat noga will have no dominion whatever. Azai lo asak haTorah mitzvot leborer birurin. Then people will engage in the Torah, study of Torah, and in the observance of commandments, not in order to extract the sparks as in present. Ki'im liyached yichudim elyonim yoter lehemshich odrot al elyonim yoter shleim mala meha atzilot. But in order to bring the consummation of yichudim, unions or marriages of sephirot, more sublime than those which are affected through our present Torah study, in order to call forth more sublime lights transcending atzilot, kamo shekatav ha'arizal. This is explained in the writings of Rav Isaac Luria, of blessed memory. V'akol al yedei pnimiut haTorah lekayim hamitzvot bikavanot elionot shemakavanot leorot elionim. Everything will be accomplished by means of pnimiut of the Torah, the esoteric dimension of the Torah, by the performance of the commandments with lofty mystical devotions directed to drawing down sublime lights from the divine luminary. Ki shoresh ha-mitzvot hu lamala me Allah be'ein sof baruch hu. For the root of the commandments is exceedingly high, in the blessed Ein Sof, at a level loftier than Atzilut. Umash Amru Razal, the mitzvot batelot la'atid lavo. As the statement of our sages of blessed memory, that the commandments will be abrogated in the future. Hayinu betach batechayat hamitim. Hayinu batechayat hamitim. This refers to the era of the resurrection of the dead. Aval limot HaMashiach, kodem techiyat hametim, ein batelim. In the days of the Messiah, however, before the resurrection of the dead, they will not be abrogated. In the days of the Messiah, however, before the resurrection of the dead, they will not be abrogated. At that time, the observance of mitzvot will draw down to this world even higher levels of godliness than those drawn down by the current observance of mitzvot. V'lachein Hashem gam ikar asa katorah gam kein hapnimiot hamitzvot u ta'a mehem hanistarim. This is why Torah study will then be mainly directed to the pnimiot, the innermost mystical depths of the commandments and their hidden reasons. Specifically, gaining insights into the dynamics of the above mentioned yichudim, and thereby understanding why the scrupulous performance of the commandments brings about these supernal unions, which give birth to received renewed diffusions of the Torah light that animates this Torah. Aval haniglot Hashem giluyim v'yaduim l'chol ish Yisrael b'yediah b'atchila b'li shichacha. The revealed aspects of the Torah, however, will be manifest and known to every Jew by an innate and unforgotten knowledge. Review thus be unnecessary. Ve'ech tzarich la'asuk bahem ella la'erev rav. Only the mixed multitude and not the Jews will have to toil in these aspects of the Torah. Shelo yazichu lametim me'ilana dechayu shehu pnimiot Torah ha-mitzvot, because they will not have merited to taste from the tree of life, i.e. the pnimiot of the Torah, of the commandments. Utzrichim la'asuk b'Torah, be'osek b'Torah, b'mishnah la'hatish, kach hastira achara, hadibuk bahem al yedei asak haTorah. They will therefore need to engage in Torah, in Mishnah, in order to weaken by their occupation with Torah the power of Sitra Achara that cleaves to them. Shalo tishlot bahem lehachatatiyam, so that it will not dominate them and cause them to sin. Kiduchtiv v'hachote ben mea shana yikolel shiyu chotim me'erev rav. This is written, and the sinner at the age of 100 will be cursed. This refers to the sinners of the mixed multitude. Even with the arrival of the Messiah, there will be sinners among the mixed multitude, since the Sitra Achara cleaves to them. They will therefore require means by which to weaken it, so that they will not sin. No, they need only the revealed aspects of the Torah in order to repel the Sitra Achara. V'gam lamase yiyu tzrichim lifrate halachot isur u tomea tum'a yoter miYisrael. In addition to on the practical level, they will need the detailed rulings of prohibition and impurity more than the Jews. Shelo ye'arei lahem pasul utuma the isur. For the latter, nothing will occur that is ritually unfit, impure, or forbidden. Kilo ya'ona kule. Since there shall not befall any sin to the righteous. And in the era of Mashiach, all Jews will be at the level of righteousness. V'gam efshar karov ha-diber sheyadu mi pnimiut ha-Torah kol gufei ha-Torah ha-nilayit. It is also possible, indeed probable, that the Jewish people will know all the fundamentals of the revealed plane of the Torah from the pnimiyut of the Torah. Kamo Avram Avinu alav hashalom. As was the case with our father Abraham, peace be with him. The Gemara relates that Abraham fulfilled the entire Torah even before it was given at Sinai. Now there are passages and commandments to which he could not possibly have related on a physical level. Inscribed on the tiny parchment scrolls within tefillin, for example, are biblical passages which record the exodus from Egypt, a land to which his descendants had not been exiled. The mode of Avram's performance of the commandments was as spiritual and esoteric as the Alter Rebbe explains in Torah Or and Likutei Torah. Abraham thus knew all the revealed aspects of Torah from its esoteric core in time to come. All Jews will know the Torah in a similar manner. L'chein ein sarich la'asuk bahem klal. For they, therefore, not need to occupy themselves with them, with the laws defining what is permitted or prohibited, pure or impure, at all. Ma she'ein kein bizman bid bayit sheni hayu tzrichim la'asuk. At the time of the second temple, by contrast, although the scholars did not desire their sustenance from the illiterate, for they had their own fields and vineyards, they needed to be uninvolved in these laws. Gam ki lo bishvil halacha lamasa bilvad ela shezahu ikar havoda, and not for their practical application, but because this is the main purpose of divine service. Latish kach hastira achara lahalot Nitzutze hakadusha al yedei haTorah va'avoda kamo shekatuv v'makom acher. To weaken the power of the Sitra Achra, and to elevate the sparks of holiness by means of Torah study and worship as is explained elsewhere. Ve'achar hadvarim v'ha'emet ha'ilu yoven heitiv b'tosefet bi'ur haraya mehemna diliel. After the above words of truth, it will be possible to clearly understand the earlier quoted passage from Raya Mehemna, Bameh She'amar, Ilana, Deto Vara, Kule, which spoke of the tree of good and evil, i.e. prohibition and permission. Ratzonu Lomar Klipa Noga Shehu Ikar Olam Hazeh, meaning Klipa Noga, which is the mainstay of this world. Kamo shekatuv ba Eitz Chaim, as is written in Eitz Chaim, at the moment until Mashiach arrives, dominant influence in this material world in Klipat Noga, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. After his arrival, however, the dominion will cease. A man's divine service will be directed not to extracting the sparks of holiness hidden in the material world, but to bringing about ever higher, superior unions, explained above. Vadai limibain. This will suffice for discerning. Addendum. In the middle of the above epistle, the Alter Rebbe stated that if one ate forbidden food in order to save an endangered life, the food becomes entirely permissible. The Rebbe notes that this concept is problematic. Indeed, many editions of the Tanya omit the word entirely, which is evidently why it found its way into current editions as a bracketed text. The Rebbe goes on to distinguish between prohibition isur and impurity tuma. When something is prohibited, one can sense its inherent evil. For example, forbidden foods clog the mind and heart with spiritual congestion. Thus, even if a pregnant woman scented forbidden food on Yom Kippur, and the Torah permitted her to eat it, if her life would be otherwise be in danger, eating the food would still becloud her soul. Moreover, even when the prohibition was not intrinsic to the food, but the thought of a statement invalidated it, as for example, when an animal was slaughtered with idolatrous intent, eating the food leaves its imprint. Thus, for example, the Midrash traces the wayward path of Elisha ben Avuya, known as Acher, to very early beginnings. Before his birth, his mother had tasted food that was prepared for idolatrous worship. In light of the above, the Rebbe goes on to note, we can understand why a nursing mother who has eaten forbidden food, even when permitted to do so, because her life was endangered, should refrain from nursing her child. For although eating this food was in fact halakhically permitted, the nature of the food and the spiritual blemish which imparts to her infant remains unchanged. This is especially so according to the halachic determination with regard to one who is ill as well, that a life-threatening situation merely sets aside a prohibition. It does not make the prohibited object permissible. As the Rebbe concludes, the above considerations evidently explain why in current editions of Iggeret hakodesh regarding the food eaten in life-threatening situation that becomes entirely possible, the word entirely is bracketed and in many editions never appeared. This is my end of my video Tanya. Abad.org, day 22. Goodbye.